It started with the smell, not smoke, just a sour, electrical tang coming from the hallway wall, like overheated plastic. Marla Haynes, 51, a senior project manager who kept spreadsheets for everything, pressed her palm to the paint and felt a faint warmth where warmth didn't belong. She didn't call a contractor that night because the next morning she had a flight, and because nothing was visibly broken yet. 2 days later, she returned to find the baseboard bowed, the drywall bubbled, and a thin trail of soot curling up from an outlet behind the console table. The fire hadn't raged, it had crept. It had scorched wiring, melted insulation, and left a black bruise inside the wall that a passerby would never notice. The electrician shut off the breaker, cut open the drywall, and showed her the charred cavity. "It's a miracle it didn't jump," he said, pointing to a beam that looked intact but felt brittle. The repair estimate came in the same afternoon, $18,740 to replace wiring and drywall, $6,900 for cabinetry refinishing where smoke had kissed the wood, and $3,260 for air cleaning because the odor had settled into the vents. Marla exhaled hard, then told herself this was exactly why she paid her premiums on time. She filed the claim before dinner, attaching photos, the electrician's report, and the invoice projections. The claim portal thanked her for being a valued customer and promised a call within 48 hours. By the third day, the adjuster's voice sounded calm and practiced, as if he were describing weather. "We have your documents," he said. "We'll schedule an inspection." When he came, he walked the hallway slowly, tapped the wall, and asked if there had been open flames. Marla told him the truth: no flames, just heat, charring, smoke residue, and the electrician's warning that the fault could have reignited. The adjuster nodded, took measurements, and said, "This should be straightforward." That phrase stuck to her like the smell in the vents. It was the last time the process felt normal. The first email arrived a week later, not a denial, but a request: proof of maintenance for the electrical system, proof of inspection history, proof that the outlet had not been modified. Marla dug through folders, found the home inspection from when she purchased the house, and sent it. Another request followed: receipts for any electronics connected to the outlet. She sent a list. Then came the silence, long enough that the hallway repairs had to begin anyway because the charred cavity was open to the studs. She paid the contractor deposit, $9,500, on her credit card, telling herself reimbursement would arrive before the statement was due. The contractor found more damage inside the wall and under the floor transition strip. Heat traveled, he explained, showing her a singed section of subfloor. The estimate rose to $32,180. Marla forwarded the revised figure to the adjuster and waited. On day 23, a letter appeared in the portal with a bold header: Claim Status Update. She clicked it expecting a settlement breakdown. Instead, she saw a single sentence that made her reread it twice: coverage is being evaluated under the electrical system's endorsement. An endorsement sounded like a benefit, like extra protection. She didn't remember adding one. She opened her policy PDF and searched for the word. The search returned 6 results, one of them under a section she had never read: limitations, electrical and wiring. The clause was clinical, almost polite, but it described her situation with terrifying precision. It said that damage caused by electrical arcing, overheating, or smoldering without open flame was subject to a sublimit unless a defined fire event occurred. She stared at the phrasing, smoldering without open flame, and felt her stomach drop because that was exactly how she had described it to the adjuster. The sublimit was $5,000. Her repairs were already past $20,000 and climbing. She called the adjuster immediately. He didn't answer. She left a message, then another, then emailed a screenshot of the clause asking what it meant in real terms. 2 days later, he called back and spoke gently, like he was offering condolences. "The electrical arcing limitation applies," he said. "The policy treats this differently than an open flame fire." Marla gripped the phone until her knuckles ached. "But it is fire damage," she said. "There's charring. There's soot." The electrician said it nearly ignited. The adjuster paused. I understand, he replied, but the policy definition hinges on visible flames. She asked him if that meant she should have waited until the house burned to qualify. He didn't answer that question. He repeated the number, $5,000, less her deductible. The deductible was $2,500. Her payment, if the clause held, would be $2,500. Marla opened her credit card app while he spoke and watched the balance tick upward in her mind, the $9,500 deposit, the emergency electrician, the air cleaning, the temporary hotel stay when the vents made her throat burn. None of it fit into $2,500. She escalated the call to a supervisor. The supervisor confirmed the same language and added another detail Marla hadn't seen. The endorsement also applied a waiting period for additional living expenses if the event was classified as non-flame electrical damage. She had assumed her hotel receipts were covered. Now she was told they were not, because the waiting period meant the first 72 hours were on her, and the classification meant her displacement wasn't considered a covered evacuation. The numbers piled up in a way that felt less like math and more like pressure on her chest. $32,180 in repairs, $1,860 in hotel charges, $640 in meals, $420 in transport, $1,200 in lost work time she couldn't bill to her employer. When the contractor found smoke staining behind the built-in shelves, he added another $6,220 for remediation. Marla approved it because the smell was already in her clothes. At night she lay awake listening for the faint crackle of wires inside the walls, even after the main panel had been replaced, because her brain had decided that any silence could be the pause before something smoldered again. She requested a full written explanation. The response came stamped in red, partial. The settlement offer was $2,500 for repairs and $0 for living expenses. Seeing the stamp made it feel final, like a judge's decision, even though it was just a form. She sat at her kitchen table, now relocated to the living room because the hallway was gutted, and realized she had been paying for certainty, not coverage. She pulled up her payment history, years of automatic withdrawals, each one small enough to ignore, all of them adding up to more than the amount being offered to her now. She called a friend to ask if she was missing something. The friend asked, "Did you read the exclusions?" Marla didn't answer because shame rose first, hot and immediate. She had skimmed the big words, fire, theft, water, and assumed the rest was legal padding. The hidden clause had lived in a subsection that sounded like a bonus, an endorsement, and the definition of fire had been narrower than her imagination. The next week, the contractor finished the repairs, but the cost didn't stop. Her credit card interest began, then the line of credit she opened to cover the remaining balance. She canceled a planned trip, postponed dental work, and stopped buying anything that wasn't urgent because each purchase now felt like theft from the hole in her finances. At work she started rereading emails 3 times, not because the words were complicated, but because her mind kept drifting back to the sentence, smoldering without open flame, the way the clause had weaponized her honesty. She began to speak less on calls, afraid that a single wrong phrase could be used against her again. When the final contractor invoice arrived, the total was $38,400. Marla wrote the number on a sticky note and placed it on the fridge like a warning label. She could not stop calculating how many months it would take to erase it, how many quiet evenings she would spend paying for a disaster that had been real in every physical sense but not real enough in the policy's definition. The house looked normal again, but her body didn't. Any time she smelled hot dust from a heater, her heart accelerated. Any time she saw a wall outlet, she imagined blackness behind it. Her policy renewal email arrived the following month, cheerful and automatic, offering a convenient option to keep payments the same. She didn't click renew. She just stared at the screen until her eyes burned, because the worst part wasn't the money. It was the realization that the protection she thought she bought had been conditional on the world burning louder. This story is fictional, but the insurance mistake is real. For more stories like this, subscribe to Policy Nightmares so you don't miss the next episode or continuation of this story.